The world, well, it seemed to collectively hold its breath. A ceasefire, announced after 12 really intense days of conflict between Israel and Iran. Finally, a glimmer of hope, right?
A glimmer.
But what if that hope just shattered, almost immediately, within hours?
That's exactly what we need to look at.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into these incredibly rapid, almost chaotic developments around the supposed truce. We're trying to sift through all the conflicting reports, the immediate challenges.
The sheer fragility of it all.
Yeah, the stark realities that really put its viability to the test straight away. It's volatile, and we want to give you the clearest possible picture. Okay, let's try and unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, June 24th, 2025. U.S. President Donald Trump announces a complete and total ceasefire. This was brokered through U.S. and Qatari diplomacy.
Right.
The plan seems straightforward enough. Iran stops first, then Israel follows. But here's where it gets, well, really interesting and complicated, fast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because you had both Prime Minister Netanyahu and Iran's leadership, President Pezeshkian, Foreign Minister Arachi. Yep. They didn't give full support.
Only conditional support.
Exactly. Conditional. Each one essentially saying, no, you stop first.
Which sounds like a recipe for, well, not working. What were the immediate red flags there, besides the obvious you first problem?
Well, that conditionality was the biggest red flag. A critical vulnerability. It's almost a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
When both sides say you first, it just screams trust deficit. There's no mechanism agreed upon for actually verifying who does what when. It basically guarantees immediate accusations.
And the accusations came thick and fast.
Almost immediately. Reports started flooding in about missile fire after the truce was supposed to be in effect. Yeah. Allegations that Iran launched missiles at Israeli cities. Be'er Sheva, areas in the north.
Leading to casualties.
Yes, confirmed civilian casualties. But then Iran flatly denied it, said any claims of post-truce launches were completely false.
So, claim and counterclaim right from the start.
Precisely. And Israel's response. Defense Minister Katz confirmed orders for, quote, intense strikes on Tehran. They cited these alleged Iranian violations.
So, strikes on Tehran, what were they claiming to hit?
They claimed hits on Iranian military sites, even nuclear facilities, and reportedly a nuclear scientist. They did pause further action, but only after President Trump apparently intervened directly.
Wow. The speed of that escalation.
Yeah.
Allegation to military strike. It's breathtaking. It almost unraveled the whole thing before it even began.
It really threatened to, yes, from the absolute inception.
And beyond the sort of diplomatic back and forth and the military chess moves, there's the human cost. It's stark.
Terribly stark.
You mentioned Beersheva seeing civilian strikes right after the ceasefire announcement.
Yes, the initial report suggested, tragically, maybe 4 or 5 deaths, 20 to 30 injured. And remember, earlier in the conflict, the main hospital there, Soroka.
Right, that had already been hit.
It had. By a powerful Iranian Sejil missile, caused over 50 injuries, significant damage. It just underscores the real-world impact of all this.
And was this happening in a vacuum? Or was the wider region still volatile?
Oh, definitely not a vacuum. The region remained incredibly tense. You had reports, for instance, of Iran allegedly attacking a U.S. base in Qatar.
Retaliation for something.
Allegedly retaliation for earlier U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. And then separately, completely unrelated on the surface, hostilities flared up again in Gaza. Reports of Israeli forces killing dozens of people queuing for aid.
So multiple flashpoints. It just shows how interconnected and fragile everything is.
Exactly. It raises that critical question. How can any ceasefire, especially one starting with such contradictions and violence, possibly hold in a region that's already a tinderbox?
So given all this, the immediate violations, the conditional stances, what does this actually tell us about ceasefires in this kind of deep-seated conflict? Are they just pauses, or can they ever be more?
That really is the core question, isn't it? What we saw here, it wasn't just a temporary setback. It feels more like a textbook example of what some call negative peace, meaning you might stop the active fighting for a bit, but you haven't addressed any of the underlying issues, the mistrust, the core reasons for the conflict. Iran's Foreign Minister Arachi even said, look, there's no formal agreement. He maintained Iran's ceasefire depends entirely on Israel stopping first.
Still stuck on you first.
Still stuck. Meanwhile, President Trump acknowledged violations, but insisted the ceasefire was, quote, in effect, urging restraint. And you saw some superficial signs. Oil markets eased a bit, airspace reopened, evacuations went ahead.
But militarily?
Militarily, both sides stayed, essentially on standby.
Yeah.
It wasn't peace breaking out. It felt much more like a holding pattern. Very, very tense.
So let's recap. You have a declared ceasefire. Within hours, both sides accuse the other of attacks, threatening to tear the whole thing down. Leadership statements dripping with mistrust. Its survival hinges entirely on actual, verifiable compliance.
which seems incredibly difficult to achieve.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it actually take for a ceasefire to hold when trust is basically non-existent and the very first moments are defined by more conflict? What will you be watching for next in this situation?